Hi everyone, welcome to the Technology for Good show. My name is Tom Raftery. I'm with a company called Redmuck. I'm an industry analyst, and with me I have my co-host Chris. Chris.
Hi, Chris Kernan, a principal consultant at Bluefin Solutions, specializing in SAP technology, and just in my spare time of what little there is, I love just tinkering with technology in general. So thank you very much for having me, Tom.
Not at all. Not at all. It's fantastic. I mean, we've been doing this show now. We've got 80 episodes up at this point, or this is episode 80 at least. We've 79 episodes up, and this is episode 80. It's pretty amazing. This is the first show where I am bespectacled. Yeah, old age has finally caught up with me, and apparently I need glasses. So I might actually be able to see what we're talking about this week, which will be nice.
It would be definitely. Have you been able to dial down, the zoom on the web pages now?
I haven't needed that so much. Luckily, my site isn't that bad. I gotta say, and I do have the zoom turned up for this show, but not for most other things. So we're okay on that front. I gotta say.
Excellent.
We'll hit into the stories, Chris, because we've a good few to get into.
Gotcha.
We missed last week because neither of us were available. I was on a plane and you were in a meeting or something, so we missed last week. So we got 2 weeks worth of stories to try and catch up on. Plus, these last 2 weeks have been busy weeks on the climate front with the meeting in Paris. So there's a lot to talk about that. As always, for anyone who's not familiar with the format of the show, we talk about some bad news stories first, just set a bit of context, and then we get into all the good news stuff and how technology is going to help us get out of the problems that we've made for ourselves. So we start off with a bad news story, and the first bad news story is this one, and it comes from The Guardian, and it talks about how the Earth has lost 1/3 of arable land in the last 40 years, according to scientists. And I mean, that's pretty scary, because the arable land is the land we use to produce the food that feeds everyone on the planet. And if we've lost 1/3 of that to soil damage and droughts and things like that, I mean, that reduces by 1/3 our ability to produce food de facto. And this is down primarily to climate change, but also to farming practices and our not really taking care of how we produce the food that we eat every day.
But can you just bounce back to that a second? Because that picture is actually really scary. When you actually look at the caption beneath it, that's in Suffolk.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a desert somewhere. No.
Or Northern Africa. That is Suffolk. And that soil is just, it's something that I would expect to see in the driest parts of Spain as I'm flying over them.
Yeah. And that kind of damage to soil is done by over-fertilization, too many chemicals, and also to plowing it too much. It needs to be left go fallow in between seasons and things like that, doing crop rotations. The over intensification of the farming has destroyed a lot of farmland. It's appalling. Anyway, we'll move on from that onto the better news stories. And I mentioned that we had a lot of stories coming out of the climate conference in Paris. So the first of the stories that I saw that was interesting was the one about Canada shocking the delegates in Paris by saying that they wanted, Canada, as we've mentioned here a couple of times, have been kind of obstructionist when it comes to climate stuff until
administration,
until Justin Trudeau was elected a couple of weeks ago. It was the Harper administration before him that was anti-science and anti-climate, and they were kicked out of office. Justin Trudeau was elected into office, and one of the first things he did was he appointed a minister for science and a minister for climate change. And
most of them were actually qualified for the jobs.
Exactly, they were actual scientists, which is spectacular to see. And the science minister, or sorry, the Environment and Climate Change Minister, Catherine McKenna, surprised everyone at the event by saying that they wanted to not stop climate change and global warming at 2 degrees C, which is what we've been talking about thus far, but they want to stop it at 1.5 degrees C. Which is a significantly better position to be taking. They're not alone in that, and they weren't the first to suggest it. But as far as I know, they were the first of the major OECD countries to jump onto the 1.5 degrees C bandwagon. This was something that was proposed by a lot of the developing countries, particularly the ones in the Pacific, who are being inundated and who think that 2 degrees is a couple of meters of water too much for them.
Yes, pretty much. Whenever you look at countries like the Maldives, for example, where they're already having severe encroachment and loss of land due to sea level rise, you can understand why. Obviously the Maldives in the Indian Ocean. But you have also islands like the French Polynesians, the Cook Islands and things that aren't massive and right out in the middle of the Pacific. Yeah, it's interesting. So it is, and it's great to see such a bold statement, considering we even about 3 weeks ago we acknowledged the fact that we've passed 1 degree. Permanent. Well, not permanently, but we've passed 1 degree as the norm now, and we're now looking at staring down the barrel of 1.5 pretty quickly. A bold statement like that is very, very gutsy. It'll require a lot of effort, but it's not inconceivable, and
it will be hard. It will be hard. I mean, what we got to realize, and this is where the hard part comes into it. What you really got to understand is that 2 degrees C means that 3/4 of the world's proven oil reserves have to stay in the ground. 3/4 of the proven reserves of fossil fuels have to stay in the ground. That decimates the fossil fuel companies and countries, and that's 2 degrees C. If we come back to 1.5 degrees C, we're looking at kind of 6/8, 7/8, that kind of ballpark. And
you've destroyed many countries' economies that are based on
fossil fuels. The likes of Venezuela is in serious trouble at the moment. For example, Nigeria, a lot of the countries that even Saudi are having problems at the moment. And there was a meeting of OPEC last Friday, and there was a lot of speculation beforehand that Saudi would cave to pressures to cut back on their production, and of course they didn't. And even if they did, even if Saudi had decided last Friday to cut back on production, there's so much oil now in tankers off the coast of Singapore, off Shanghai, off the US coast, off the Chinese coast. There's so much there in reserve, and the demand has gone down that even if Saudi stopped production tomorrow, the price of oil would stay low for another 6 to 8 months. And Saudi said, no, we're not going to stop production. We want, basically they're saying they want every gigaton of CO2 to be a Saudi gigaton, and they want to get the money for it. Because why wouldn't they? Because it's cheapest for them to produce. So they're putting all the other producers out of business. And
I do wonder how long Hugo Chavez is going to last now. He has done some great work in Venezuela.
Venezuela is screwed. Chavez is gone. It's what's the name of his successor? It'll come to me, but they had an election there during the week, and the opposition took a load of the seats. The Chavez party is in disarray. Venezuela's in a nosedive. So no, Venezuela are in deep doo-doo as a result of this. And if you look at this if you take this to its logical conclusion, if you remember back 10 years ago, we were talking about the idea of peak oil.
Yes.
Peak oil is that idea is gone. It's completely gone, because peak oil was the idea that we would run out of oil. The contrary is true. We have so much oil, we will never use it all. We can never use it all. It has to stay in the ground. So that completely has to change people's way of thinking. But consequently, if you think of some of the large industries like the oil exploration business, that business is gone. If you are in the oil exploration industry, you're screwed. Because even if we stop at 2 degrees C and we don't get an agreement at 1.5 degrees C, that's still 3/4 of the oil has to stay in the ground. Why would you look for more when 3/4 of the stuff we've already found will never be extracted? You know, so the oil exploration industry is dead. It is a fossil, and consequently, things like the Arctic oil exploration, that's
the Keystone Pipeline.
Keystone Pipeline, dead. Ontario, tar sands, marginal fields, all gone. So this, I mean, what I'm saying is you know, oh yeah, sorry, Tammy's just come on and said Maduro is Chavez's successor. Thank you, Tammy. What this means is, I mean, this is based on there being an agreement coming out of Paris. But
I've just had a thought, and it's a bit tangential. Do you ever watch Countdown?
No.
Oh, it'll be lost on you. I was about to say Tammy is effectively our Susie Dent in Dictionary Corner. She's our resident fact checker.
Okay.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Danny. Indeed. Nicolas Maduro. That's right. And his government, as I said, had an election, and I think they lost 79 seats or something like that in the election this last week. So they're in a tailspin. They're in a complete tailspin. But anyway, we'll move on because we've a lot of stories to get through. And
we've got a lot to get through.
So the next story that I saw that I thought was interesting was this one, and it talks about the fact that the Paris climate deal, we're almost there. The French are doing a fantastic job, I have to say, of running this event. They produced a draft agreement on Wednesday, and the draft agreement had a lot of places in it where there was still things to be nailed down and decided and that, but they did it on time. They did it when they said they were going to do it, and they've been, keeping everyone's kind of nose to the grindstone, doing overnight negotiations and the whole thing, making sure everything runs to schedule, which is pretty incredible. And the event is supposed to finish this evening. And this article from The Guardian has been doing stellar coverage of this event, but this article from The Guardian is saying, look, it will probably overrun by 24 hours, but the outcomes from it are looking incredibly positive. And we probably won't get everything we want, but we'll get a hell of a lot of it, and there'll be follow-on events in 3 and 5 years' time where everything will get properly nailed down, more than likely. But they're talking about the Canadian position, and I'm calling it the Canadian position. It's not Canada who brought it up, but they're talking about again in this limiting it to 1.5 degrees C. So the thing that Canada jumped on board with is now actually becoming a mainstream thing.
Yeah,
Canada jumped on board, and then the other OECD countries did as well. There's a few holdouts, but it looks like they might there's a possibility that they might set a 1.5 degrees C target as opposed to the 2 degrees C target, which is what we had expected to come out of this. So we had expected 2 degrees C, and it's looking like we might actually exceed that. We might get people saying, no, we want 1.5, which would be amazing. Or even if they settled in the middle and did a 1.75, which I haven't heard anyone talk about. But I mean,
you're right in the fact that this Paris conference has been stunning, and there are two things that really stand out for me. The draft up to this point has all been done by negotiators.
Yeah,
okay, it's not done by politicians. It's ratified by the politicians and signed off. But these are professional negotiators who spend their time in these type of events, and the fact that their governments have given them a mandate, to agree this type of stuff is very unusual. The fact that so many of them are on the same page is nigh on unheard of.
Yeah.
So I'm really impressed that we've got this far with professional negotiators, people who are paid not to give too much away and look at what they are agreeing on.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that there's 190 countries there. The UN recognizes 196 or 194 countries. Yeah. So you really do have the entire world there, which is, you were saying earlier on that the Copenhagen conference only had 167. So this is just amazing in its own right. So that's it's phenomenal.
But what's stunning as well is that the draft proposals that they're publishing, the one on Wednesday was 29 pages, and the one on Thursday was 27 pages.
Seriously, is that it? That's brilliant.
Like, but how did you manage to condense it down to that? It's like, wow.
Yeah, but think about it. It's like the Articles of Human Rights from the United Nations, right? They are clearly defined statements. They are, some of them are literally only one sentence.
Yeah.
But the parts in that one sentence is absolutely stunning. And what's interesting is the Articles of Human Rights that came from the United Nations was actually, I want to say, Roosevelt's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt.
Eleanor, okay, yeah.
A lot of people were very, she was a driving force behind the United Nations. A lot of people expected that she would actually go into politics herself in the United States after the death of her husband.
Wow. But
she ended up actually going to the United Nations and helping to draft things like the Articles of Human Rights.
Wow.
So, fun fact. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt. But anyway.
No.
Yeah.
Quite likely. Interesting. The next story that I wanted to bring up, and there's a couple of related stories here actually. So the first one of these is, these are several stories coming out of Paris and kind of coincident with Paris. Major powers are pledging 20 billion for green energy research. So this is the US and 18 other countries. They've pledged to double funds for clean energy research to a total of 20 billion over 5 years, so 4 billion a year. And that boosts, excuse me, a parallel initiative by Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, which we'll come on to in a second.
Yeah.
And the countries involved are the UK, surprisingly, Canada, China, Brazil, India, South Africa. And
that is very surprising.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised at the UK's involvement at all, considering their position on green technologies in since the last government was elected.
I struggle with people like George Osborne and things like that. The financial chicanery that those people get involved with, to say that they've donated this or they're still funding that and all the rest of it. It boggles me. It is just financial chicanery. I don't trust them. I don't believe in anything that they're actually talking about with regards to funding science or climate commitments. I don't. I think they're disingenuous and just bad people.
And I mean, I've seen, and I tweeted about it earlier, I've seen a lot of the people in Paris referring to Cameron as the great greenwasher.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the UK's position, the UK now, I mean, had Abbott still been there from Australia and had Harper still been there from Canada, then the UK would be, in third place behind the skeptics and behind the fossil fuel fans. But now the UK seems to be leading that charge, which is kind of scary. The UK and Saudi, probably the two of them. And that's, that's not a good, it's not good bedfellows you want to be in with, really.
No, definitely not. Definitely not indeed.
But keeping on with the good news, I saw this story as well, again coming from Paris, and it's about how India has put together a coalition of 120 countries to boost solar energy. And the countries are mostly sub-Saharan and southern hemisphere, the countries that have access to a lot of solar energy. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to boost, obviously, the solar industry globally. They've got companies involved as well. You can see the companies involved include Areva, Engie, Enel, HSBC France, and Tata Steel. And Tata are interesting because they're a huge Indian company, and they're run by Ratan Tata. And he's one of the
he's one of the Zuckerberg people. He's in that Zuckerberg already.
He's one of the guys in this Breakthrough Energy Coalition, which was also announced at Paris. And so we saw the announcement of the major powers that we talked about a second ago, putting in 20 billion for green energy research. Then you see this you see this Breakthrough Energy Coalition. I'm getting my announcements mixed up here, but the Breakthrough Energy Coalition is a coalition of basically billionaires, people who have got private money, and they're starting to invest it. And what they're going to do is they're going to invest it in energy. They're going to invest it in renewable energy research and development. And if you look at the names of the people who are doing this, I mean, it's a real who's who. So I don't know Mukesh Ambani, but he's managing director of Reliance Industries, which is a big Indian company. John Arnold from the Arnold Foundation, Mark Benioff, Jeff Bezos, Prince Alawid bin Talal, Richard Branson, Ray Dalio, Aliko.
There's one thing that Bezos did this week that I thought was absolutely awesome, which he offered Donald Trump a free ride into space.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
So he did. He's not generally credited with a sense of humor, but he might actually have been serious. But that was good. That was good. Now the Breakthrough Energy Coalition is awesome.
Vinod Khosla, Jack Ma, Xavier Neal, Hasso Plattner, Neil Shen, Nat Simons, George Soros, Tom Steyer, Ratan Tata, as I said, Meg Whitman, and the Zuckerberg. I mean, the names. I mean, it's every single possible billionaire you could think of, with the possible exception of the Koch brothers, who
I'm surprised that Soros is in there. That's a man. He's a man who genuinely, he is a number one on the back of his shirt. That's a man who doesn't invest in something unless he sees a very healthy return for him. Yeah. You're talking about the man who basically caused Black Wednesday when the pound was against, or was matched against the European common currency.
No, I remember.
He was certainly a person non grata within the confines of the UK government. Nigel Lawson? What was his name? Chinless Wonder.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Norman Lamont.
Norman Lamont. That was it.
But yeah, the Breakthrough Energy Coalition it sounds amazing, and this Morrissey's group sounds amazing. But the one thing that fossil fuel has always had is the ability to, the transportability, the whole transport network, the whole fuel, the energy network that comes behind it. If those organizations solve that problem, then it's, we can have microgrids and we can have distributed generation and all the rest of it, but if you really want to make it work, you have to turn that renewable energy into something that's easily transportable.
It depends on the place as well. I mean, a lot of places have the transportation infrastructure in place right now for transporting electrons. But in that case, what they have is they have sunk costs in terms of central generation facilities, which need to be written off.
Yeah,
and a new generation put in place, and that's expensive. And then in the developing world, where they don't have the transportation infrastructure, they have to put in the transportation infrastructure, and they have to put in the smaller scale generation as well. So there's a lot of capital costs to be put out there. There is. So seeing the money come from the governments and from private industry, there are two very positive announcements right there. The Breakthrough Energy Coalition and the was it 19 governments coming together as well to put 20 billion towards it.
Still doesn't match Zuckerberg's 45, mind you. But I literally could just imagine. So, those 19 governments going, yeah, we got 20 billion in the pot, awesome. And Zuckerberg comes along with 45, and they're like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah. That was pretty amazing. I gotta say,
20 billion's better than nothing. So it is. So
yeah, it is. We'll keep going. There was some good news as well that I thought. I mean, so there's a lot of good news came out of Paris this week, but it was just one that I wanted to highlight as well, and it comes from a place we don't discuss very much, but Uruguay. And Uruguay and South America have made a phenomenal change to their energy in the last couple of years, the last few years, not a couple of years. The last few years, they've shifted almost entirely over to renewables. They now provide 94.5% of Uruguay's electricity, and they've done.
I did have to read that twice. I didn't quite believe the figure. I did have to go back and look at it and go, seriously?
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. And I mean, you can see the story here. 15 years ago, it was very different. 15 years ago, oil was 27% of Uruguay's imports, and they were building a new pipeline to pull in gas from Argentina. And now the biggest item on their balance sheet is the import of wind turbines. So they've managed to do a nice mix of biomass, wind, solar, and hydro, and consequently they've been able to get it up to 94.5%. And they're bringing in the large wind turbines, the 108 meters tall ones, and they've got some nice planes as well for those wind turbines. So they've completely re-architected their energy supply. And to do that in 15 years is very impressive.
Yeah, the most telling statement in that entire, one of the most telling statements in that entire article is that it slashes carbon footprint without government subsidies or higher cost to consumers.
Yeah,
and that's amazing. They used to import electricity from Argentina. They now export a third, which means they're overproducing. Yeah. It's improved their balance sheet. It really is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
There's so much to be learned from stories like that. I mean, and these are not the stories you hear often enough. So it's pretty amazing, I think.
Yeah. No, it definitely does seem to be a very progressive country. Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. But
as opposed to the Venezuela that we talked about a few minutes ago.
Yeah. Well,
that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah. No. Totally. So all right.
A country destroyed by oil and greed. We'll move on. We mentioned private industry, and we saw this announcement come out this week as well about how Google have taken another step towards their goal of 100% from clean energy. Now they say carbon neutral. Sorry?
Directly from clean energy.
Directly, that's it. Directly, because they are they're at somewhere between about 37 and 40% directly at the moment. The rest is from renewable energy certificates. But they've gone and bought another 842 megawatts of renewable energy capacity in this deal, and that brings them up to about 2 gigawatts globally from renewables, which is pretty significant. It's still, they're still a long way off 100% from renewables, but that's just because they've got a massive energy footprint powering all their data centers. But it's nice to see Google doing this. I mean, if you look at the large tech companies, Google we'll say at 40%, SAP are at say 40%. IBM are at about 17%. Oracle are probably around 15 to 17%. Microsoft are at, last time I checked, a little in excess of 80% from renewables directly. Apple are 100% from renewables directly. Who am I missing? You know, so what Google are doing is quite good. And they have an aim of chasing that down and getting a lot further along that line, which is fantastic. And you know, they're showing incredible leadership as well. I mean, Apple are way ahead of them and Facebook are way ahead of them, but they're still showing a lot of leadership because they're jumping on that bandwagon and chasing it down. What we need to see is more of the tech companies following suit, and a lot more of the non-tech companies following suit.
Yep. Sorry, my MiFi died there a second, so I missed pretty much all of that. But I'll agree with you and go right on.
I'm just saying it's great to see private sectors stepping up, especially in the tech arena, we need to see more of it, and more particularly from the non-tech arena.
Yeah, but as we said before, you know, we're back in an era of large-scale philanthropic efforts by titans of industry. You know, we were talking about Dale Carnegie or and other industrialists who
the Roosevelts and people like that.
Yeah, you know, the Rockefellers, you know, all those people, you know, hard-nosed business people who you know were the, you know, the people of their day. And they donated large amounts of money to philanthropic efforts, and you know, as their, you know, nearly the reparations for all the things that they did as industrialists. But you know, we're back in a period where we see this now. You know, I don't recall in the you know, the 80s and 90s and noughties, you know, too many people doing this type of stuff. You know, not the way we see it now.
No.
You know, I could be wrong. I may not have been looking in the right places, but certainly, you
know,
know,
the move to be philanthropic amongst the young billionaires is a new phenomenon. It's only come up in the last few years, and it's great to see.
But what I mean is actually just this level of creating charitable foundations. You know, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, you know, the Zuckerberg's Foundation, all these types of things. I haven't seen anything like this in the last 20 years.
No, and in fairness to the Zuckerbergs, or I should say to Zuckerberg and Chan, in fairness to them, their contribution has come in for quite a bit of criticism, and I think unfairly so. They're giving away, to an entity they own, they're giving away 45 billion to be dispersed. I mean, they could have done what, you know, billionaires in the 90s and 80s and 70s and even the noughties did. They could have, you know, bought an island somewhere and several large yachts. Paul Allen comes to mind, for example. You know,
you've gone again.
I was saying that they could have bought an island somewhere or large yachts. The likes of Paul Allen comes to mind. You know, or a lot of the Saudi rich who spend a lot of their money buying hotels and things like that. That's not what they're doing. They've set up this company to disperse this $45 billion to you know, in some cases it'll be investments, and in some cases they'll be doing lobbying, and that's fine. It's their money, you know. It's their money to give away as they see fit.
But even if half of it makes it to direct affecting projects, that's still the same amount of money that 19 governments donated.
Yeah.
You know, you know, big picture.
Yeah,
It's 45 billion more that's pledged than there was last week.
Yeah. And like I said, that they could be, buying islands and super yachts and rubbish like that. And instead they're hoping to make the world a better place. And maybe they could have structured it differently. I don't care. They're still giving away 45 billion to try and make the world a better place.
If he structured it differently, why didn't he just give the money to Bill Gates and their foundation? There has to be diversity in how this type of operation works.
Yeah,
it's not a one size fits all. There'll be stuff that Bill Gates and his foundation goes after. There'll be different stuff that Mark Zuckerberg and his foundation goes after.
Correct.
That's the best way to make it work.
As long as a lot of it goes towards energy, I'm happy.
As long as it goes to helping the world, that's all. I think we're agreed on that. Whether that's healthcare, for children, women, families, whatever, better ways of producing food or energy. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go take. Do the next story.
Sure. Yep. So the next one comes out of Google again, and this is one we've touched on before. Google released a tool early this year where if you lived in one or two places in the US, I think Massachusetts was one of them, you could put in your address, it would tell you your particular roof, how many years it would take to get a return on investment if you installed solar on your roof, depending on different variables like how much roof space you had, how much shade they had from trees, what direction they were faced, the cost of utilities in your area, these kinds of factors. But it was only a couple of small places within the US. They've expanded it. It's still just within the US, but it now covers more states. It covers metro areas in California, North Carolina, Nevada, Massachusetts, Arizona, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and Colorado. So those states made the Solar Energy Industry Association's list of the top 10 solar states in 2014. So what Google did quite cleverly was they looked at the places where it was best to deploy solar in the US, and they went after those and rolled this out in those states. So anyone living in the metro areas in those states now can, as I say, type in their address and see how long it'll take to get a return on investment deploying solar there, which is fantastic.
No, completely. We remember Sue Cohen has her solar panels up, and I think she was quite gutted that it didn't fit. Didn't have her area
covered.
But no, it's these types of tools that help homeowners actually decide whether they want to go solar or if they want to do this type of thing. Yeah, a lot of the sometimes the renewable energy at a delivery level or at a consumer level doesn't always have the best reputation for selling and things like that. It's things like this that are impartial, and informative, that help people actually decide, yes, we're going to go solar, and our roof actually it makes sense to do this. So yeah, no, it's definitely a good thing, and even just there's lots of very, very interesting data actually just that sits behind that makes the whole thing work.
Yeah, I mean the pricing in various states, the pricing per kilowatt hour, for utility electricity varies enormously.
Exactly.
Plus any rebates and weather data and any, as I say, any rebates that are due. Some states have rebates for production of renewables, some states don't. Yeah. So it changes hugely, and all that has to be taken account in working out those numbers. So it's complicated, and it's great to see that Google are rolling this out and allowing people to see it. Speaking of Google, the next story, we're moving a bit away from the energy space now and into artificial intelligence because, and I know this is a story, Chris, that you liked. The Google's TensorFlow.
I love the name. The name is awesome. It's one of those names. Like, I was absolutely gutted when Microsoft changed the name of their browser to Edge when they had called it Spartan. That was name.
I thought you were going to say Internet Explorer. I was going Internet Explorer. Really, you thought that was nice? No, but Spartan. Yeah, Spartan's good. That I can.
Brilliant name.
Yeah.
And TensorFlow is just one of those names that, it sounds quite geeky and really sciencey and all the rest of it, and but overall, right? The bottom line is that they're making their AI software, their AI engine, freely available.
Yeah, they've open sourced it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Whenever you consider that, the original formula, the PageRank formula, was a mathematical construct that is now being underlaid with artificial intelligence to help create a what's the word I'm looking for? The view of the web that it's not. Is it a contextual web or is it a? I can't quite remember what the actual name of it is. But they're using deep learning neural networks actually to understand the content that's actually in the web page, is not just the page rank and how it's associated to other web pages, which is what PageRank did. It associated the links incoming and outgoing to determine the relevancy of a web page and how you sat within the Google hierarchy of search. They're now using machine learning to understand the content of the web pages itself, which is amazing. But the fact that you're actually releasing this software, nearly this in itself is very much like IBM and Watson. Watson is such an amazing learning engine, but IBM at the same time are actually running that platform. Google is just making the software available, not the platform available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not just Google, as we saw as well this week. Facebook as well are open sourcing the hardware for the AI that they're using, and Facebook are very involved in the Open Compute project. They're one of the founders of the Open Compute project and the whole idea of open hardware. So it makes sense that they would do this, and they've open sourced the architecture of the servers that they are using, and you can see there that this particular one's got 8 GPUs in the back of it for their AI initiatives. And the whole race to open source the whole AI and deep learning and machine learning space is not around altruism at all.
No.
What it is it's these organizations realizing that there's a huge lack of resources, of qualified resources in the space, and consequently they need to get people in. And the easiest way to get people in is to make the resources for development easier to access, and then to be able to cherry pick the people who are doing the best development in the space. Because if it's open source and if these researchers are either peer review publishing or more likely publishing stuff to the likes of GitHub, then you can see who's doing the interesting stuff and say, I see you've done some interesting stuff over here. Do you want to come in and have a chat with our HR people?
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's we both know that in certain areas your GitHub profile is your portfolio.
It's your CV. Yeah.
It is your CV. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
So,
stop stuffing your face.
Yeah, sorry. Been a missed lunch. So.
No worries.
But the interesting thing is also, when we start to look at this, we talked about things like soil erosion and being able to plan crops in this type of thing.
Yeah.
This type of deep learning is absolutely suited to these types of problems as well.
It's hugely
The article talks about identifying faces and photos and
yeah.
your news feed or your personal assistant.
Yeah.
And those are actually those are problems that deal with contextual awareness and scheduling and those types of problems. And when you actually start to take those from your personal micro circumstances into macro ecological things, those types of machine learning also fit really well with macroeconomic planning for landscape planning, all that type of stuff as well. And you'll see these types of engines start to move into those areas.
Yeah, and make huge inroads.
Massive differences. Could you imagine reducing your fertilizer usage by allowing fields to lie fallow, but being able to optimize that using an algorithm from an AI engine based on the weather data of the last 10 years. It would take it away from your gut instinct, which for many people is for some people it still works really well. Look at someone like Bert Rutan, who spent his entire life as an aerospace maverick and designed some of the weirdest airplanes in the entire world, but were highly effective. To the mathematical modeling that happens that built the Airbus A380, which is arguably one of the which is a fantastic achievement in terms of composites, fuel efficiency, and passenger numbers. Yeah. So.
True enough.
Anyway.
We digress.
We do, as usual.
Sticking with open source and changing away from AI for a second. I saw this story come out of Mozilla or out of Firefox. Mozilla have launched an app called Focus by Firefox, which is it's a content blocker, basically an ad blocker for iOS, and I assume they'll launch it for Android soon enough as well. What's interesting about it is since Apple launched iOS 9, they've made available the possibility to add in content blockers, so anyone can develop a content blocker now. There's a bunch of them out there, and they're quite good. But where Focus from Firefox, or Focus by Firefox as they're calling it, where that comes into its own is that it is open source. And right there, that's a huge differentiator. You can see a screenshot there of what it looks like. You can have it block web fonts, which is great for reducing the download if you're in a place that has a choked pipe. But you can block trackers as well, and block ads. And it seems to be well thought out, lightweight application. I downloaded it yesterday onto my phone, and it's working fine on my phone here. It's working away. I have it set. I'm allowing it to pull down the web fonts, but everything else is turned off basically. So it's nice. It seems to be doing quite a good job. It'll be updated regularly because it's an open source community run project.
Absolutely.
And just that alone is enough reason for me to want it. As I say, there are other content blockers out there. Purify, for example, is the name of one that comes to mind, but there are others. But they're not open source, so I would trust this more than I would trust them.
It's interesting. I for the most part, the ads and things like that are sometimes a necessary evil for some of the content that we actually look at. I don't find that intrusive, especially not in mobile browsing. I don't tend to do a lot of that. The ones that drive me nuts are the ones that actually play video. That really gets my goat, because I didn't sign up to have somebody play something, and especially if a lot of us work in open plan offices, and it drives me nuts. But at the end of the day, the advertisers have really created a rod for their own back. If they actually produced content that was not as intrusive, then we wouldn't be doing these types of things. But some of the websites that we look at most are content driven or are advertiser driven.
Yeah, true
so
enough.
They are. So there is a flip side to this, in the fact that if we block all these ads, then these publications are not going to get the funding that they need to keep creating content. So
no, it is a bit of a dichotomy, I guess. It's a bit of a contradiction. I totally get it. I do. Having said that, if your ads are intrusive and pull down a lot of data, I don't want them on my device.
Yeah.
You're right. But so am I.
You reserve the right to be right. Of course. You don't worry, Tom. I did see actually that Mozilla shut down their open source Android OS, or they're competing OS for Android and I guess Android and iOS, which was a bit of a disappointment, but I can understand why they did it. As an open source foundation, a charitable foundation, they have to put their money into the best bets. Obviously, they weren't making a lot of traction.
Yeah, I know. Difficult calls to make, obviously.
Absolutely.
We'll keep going, and we're still on open source. And I saw that Microsoft are open sourcing their Chakra. That basically the JavaScript part of their Edge browser. Their Edge browser is their new browser, which is taken over from Internet Explorer. Yeah. Thankfully, they tossed that out and then replaced it. And not only did they toss out IE and replace it with Edge, they've now, as I said, open sourced the heart of it, the JavaScript engine, which they've called Chakra.
Yeah.
It's a new Microsoft. Yeah, we've said it before. We keep saying it almost every week.
I know. It is amazing. The interesting thing, they've picked on an MIT license.
I thought that,
massively permissive license.
Yeah.
It's a very, very permissive license, which is phenomenal. But we use it, the Chrome, Google has open sourced most of the Chrome source code as well, so it is moving, and obviously Mozilla have open sourced Firefox, so it is joining a crowd of browsers. But as you say, Microsoft has had to deal with security vulnerabilities in Internet Explorer for years and criticism for years. This shows a willingness and an open hand on one side, but also the knowledge that people are going to be looking at their source code and making sure it's fit for purpose.
Yeah, and it's not just it's not just in the browser side, but they also this week open sourced their Live Writer tool, and the Live Writer tool was one that's been around for a long time. I remember using briefly, trying and not being very happy with, and stopping using their Live Writer tool back around 2005, 2006, I want to say it was. Might have even been a little earlier. But
I liked it. If I just want something clean, I'm able to write without doing a lot of formatting and things like that. I thought it was quite a good platform. I always hated writing up blog posts and things like that in Word, or they had like the Blogger template and stuff. Yeah. And it was just horrific.
I wouldn't do that. I would go straight into the WordPress backend and write there.
It depends. It would.
I don't know. Have you frozen or have I frozen? But you've suddenly stopped, Chris.
do 90% of the actual content in LiveWriter, upload it into WordPress, and then finish the formatting and stuff in WordPress, which I actually find really, really useful.
Okay.
But it was just if I didn't have, because I was flying every week or on trains and things like that there, I didn't have a decent connection. So by being able to use the LiveWriter, I could keep it centered on my desktop and not have to worry about intermittent connectivity corrupting uploads to pushes into WordPress.
That makes sense. Actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I wrote most of my blog posts sitting at my desk as opposed to traveling. So
yeah,
in that case, I can see where it would be very useful. And now, as I've said, they've open sourced it, and they're trying to build a community around it. And the old version, according to the blog post, can still be downloaded. Let me just call it back on screen here again, from windowslivewriter.com if anyone still wants to get the non-open source version. Sorry, I just off screen there again by mistake. Hit the wrong button. So here we go. So yeah, it's at windowslivewriter.com. If you want the old version, it's still there. The fork that they've created and made open is called Open LiveWriter, unsurprisingly. And it's available from, not surprisingly, openlivewriter.org. They're calling the release yesterday version 0.5. They say, they mentioned a couple of things they've removed from the original, things they'll be adding very soon, and known issues they're looking for people to help out with. But also they have a roadmap going forward of the things that they will be adding into it. So it's nice to see. They've had to take a couple of things out because there were licensing issues, so they couldn't bring them into the open source area. But they have plans on how to deal with that. And they have what seems to be a very well thought out roadmap going forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. But
we met, and sticking with Microsoft for a second, that the other story from them was around Cortana, their AI, their equivalent of Apple's Siri or Google Now, and Cortana now is available as long as you're based in North America on Android or iPhone.
You see, well, it's an interesting one. I think there's a bit of a contradiction in the article, actually. Not a massive contradiction, but you have iPhone, Android, and then you have the Cyanogen OS.
Yeah,
we need to be clear in the fact that Cyanogen is actually forked slightly away from Android, nearly becoming its own OS. It's still built on the Android open source platform, but it's still it's.
You're after breaking up there, Chris. I think you've gone quiet very suddenly. I don't know if the connectivity issues at your end or my end, but I've lost you there.
You got me? Am I back?
Back again. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there was a falling out between Google and the Cyanogen.
As you stop again.
I've been waiting for. I really have. I've been waiting for this. I think Cortana is probably one of the best personal assistants out there.
So it's available now for download from the Android. I'm not sure because I haven't tried it because I don't have an Android device. But it's available from the US Apple Store only for now.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's on a limited release. So it's available on Android and iOS in the US.
Yeah.
I assume what will happen is in the next couple of days, weeks, months, whatever, they'll open it up a little more and make it more globally available as well. But for now, it's US only.
Yeah.
Or North America, maybe Canada will be able to get it. I'm not sure.
But the great thing about it, if you read down the article with the cyanogen guys, so with the Android platform, you can say, "Okay, Google," and it brings the whole thing to life. The same way with with the Amazon thing, where you say, "Okay, Alexa," or with the "Okay, Siri." But with the cyanogen, which is the fork from Android, you now have "Hey Cortana" the same way you do on the Microsoft platform.
That's nice.
And that is where it's that tight coupling, that tight integration is where Siri works and where Google Now works, is that ability to call it directly from the handset. And then whenever you partner that with your wearable, so the Microsoft Band, so you can actually call Cortana on a Microsoft platform. So you've got the Lumia phone, you've got the Microsoft Band, you can then call Cortana from the band and interact with the phone.
Nice. Yeah, that's sweet. That's sweet. It is, gotta say. Yep. We'll plow on. We still have a few stories to go, and we're at the top of the hour. I'm gonna skip the Cisco story just because it's
yep.
We don't have a lot of time. But there's this nice one around connectivity and the fact that Cloudflare.
Yes.
I've rolled out basically HTTP2. Cloudflare are a CDN, content delivery network, and basically they're a company that make the internet run faster. That's their job, and what they've done is they've basically made all of their customers. They've made them HTTP2, which is a faster protocol for HTTP2. They've made that the default for all their customers, and Cloudflare are, I think, if they're not the largest, they're one of the largest. I suspect they're the largest of the CDNs.
They are. So Akamai, Cloudflare and Akamai are the two.
Akamai are different though. Akamai are a CDN, but they're more. This is my understanding. Akamai are a CDN more for delivery of downloads as opposed to websites, whereas Cloudflare seem to be more around websites than content. If you know what I mean. If you understand the difference, if you're doing a download of a large file, it's often run through Akamai. If you're browsing a website, it's often through Cloudflare.
Yeah, no. So if you were doing, for example, the streaming at TechEd Live, would be done through Akamai.
Exactly.
Whereas the Cloudflare is the delivery of websites. So WordPress.org would use Cloudflare.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. No, and that's why the HTTP2 coming through Cloudflare is important. I mean, streaming is important as well, and I assume Akamai will move to this as well. But having Cloudflare do it is fantastic, because the streaming you can kind of get away with a bit of a jitter and stuff in streaming, whereas if you're getting a website, it needs to be bang, 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 or else you just click away.
Yeah, no, one of the, it was a question I was going to ask you, because we had talked before about Google and their own efforts to speed up HTTP traffic, but they had opened and raised the possibility of actually bringing that into the HTTP2 standards. I'm just wondering if that actually happened, because I know Google have been running their own experiments on HTTP transfers and speeding that type of traffic up. It would be nice to see if they did, and HTTP2 was just a general format that was now ratified and used by everybody.
Well, the short answer is I don't know. I know that HTTP2 is built into all the browsers at this point. And I know, as you say, Google have been doing a lot of work on speeding up the web in general, particularly the mobile web as well. But how HTTP2 fits into standards, I'm not 100% on that. That's not an area I've chased down.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll keep going. We still have a few stories. There's a couple in the transportation area that I thought were interesting to bring up, and they're related, so I'll just move through them quickly. Ford, one of the largest motor companies in the world, number 2 in the US, have said that they will add 13 new EVs to its lineup by 2020, and that 40% of its brands will be electric by the end of this decade. So again, by 2020. So that's just right there. That's massively significant, because they are one of the largest car companies in the world, and to have them say that they will be going 40% of their brands electric by the end of the decade. That's only 4 years time, 4 or 5 years time, 4 years time now. They're going to switch to not almost to 40% electric. That's amazing. It shows Tesla are in the right place. If they can stick it out, they'll do well. Hyundai are doing the same. Well, Hyundai are launching a car with 3 electric powertrain options in January. So next month, basically, they'll be rolling it out. They have a teaser of it here. And Baidu, the Chinese company, are starting as well to build autonomous cars based on the BMW, for now, based on the BMW brand. But what we're seeing is an enormous shift at the highest levels in transportation to electrification and to automation. Baidu are China's equivalent of Google. Google have been doing massive work on autonomous vehicles in the US, and very close to commercializing that. And it's not surprising then to see Baidu following them doing the same thing in China. So we're seeing.
Well, they pulled in one of the former Google researchers.
Yeah.
And Andrew
NG. I'm not sure how you pronounce that.
Yeah. But yeah, so having somebody like that on board, it's not surprising. You didn't happen to see during the week, Torsten Franz, he is a Tesla.
Yep.
And during the week, he activated the autopilot mode.
All right.
And he sent a picture of the car in autopilot mode, and apparently the dashboard goes blue.
Oh.
It's in autopilot mode, which is just awesome. So it's absolutely awesome. But yeah, it was so cool. Absolutely so cool.
Something this kind of stuff, it really excites me, and it's the kind of stuff that just can't come soon enough. I've said before, I drive a Prius. We're a 1-car family. Our car is a Prius. It's a 2008 Prius, so it's 7 years old at this point.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I'll never have to buy another car. I'm hoping that Prius will drive it into the ground and then just rent cars from then on out on a hour by hour, minute by minute basis. We just ring up and say, okay, I need to go to whatever, or not even ring up, just get up the phone app and say, need car to go here, and car shows up and we all hop in and the car takes us wherever. That's my dream. It's painful enough buying one car.
Well, think about it this way. You have 2 boys. I have Anna, and they're going to learn how to drive and all the rest of it. And then the statistics are quite clear. The drivers who are most at risk are younger drivers. So I'm actually anticipating that Anna will probably never actually learn to drive the car. The car, or any of my other kids would have experience of autonomous vehicles. Lorna's beside me here just saying that Anna will learn to drive a car. So yeah, so that's me told. But yeah.
No, I mean,
apparently.
I understand where Lorna's coming from, but at the same time, I would say my 2 boys are 9 and 12, and my hope would be that they never have a driver's license, that they will never need one. Yeah. So whatever about Anna learning to drive, great if she does. But I suspect Anna's what? She's 3 now.
2.5.
2.5. Okay. I suspect by the time she is old enough to get a license, that's probably 17. So that's 14 and a half years time. 14 and a half years time.
I would actually have to let her out of the house at that point.
14 and a half years time. you won't be able to drive unless you are super rich, because it would be too expensive to get insurance to drive a car. You know,
but not probably not farmyard equipment. So you can learn to drive a tractor. That'll be okay.
so you'll have her out plowing the land for you.
The chassis earner keeps somehow.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I like it. Excellent.
Here it's good to have land.
Okay, we'll plow on. There you go. So let's slip that one in there. So 2 last stories.
Yeah.
So DJI, who are one of the large drone companies,
Yes.
they manufacture the Parrot series of drones. They've teamed up with FLIR, which is a company which makes thermal imaging cameras. FLIR stands forward-looking infrared. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think that's the name of the company as well as the technology, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So they've created an FLIR camera for the Parrot drones, basically, or for the DJI drones, and it has uses in things like the fire services. So what you see in this picture here is a building that's on fire, and if you look at it, you can see that the roof is still dark blue. So for firefighters, know that the upper floor hasn't caught yet. It's possibly even safe to walk on the roof still. So things like that. Then you have this is an agricultural image. So you would know that maybe this area might need some water or something like that. So, there's all kinds of, and you can see military applications. The military applications are already out there. The military, and even you see police forces using FLIRs on their helicopters, capturing people who are on the run.
Police camera action.
Yeah.
So it is. You can see it in the sky quite a lot. So you can.
Exactly. And now this technology, I mean, they're speculating on the rough cost, and they're saying that there's one available at the moment, very low quality one available for $250. So the one for the drone is going to come in probably maybe $500 if you just double that up. In that kind of ballpark, and throw it onto a drone, and the drone is $1,000. So you're looking at $1,500 for a drone with an FLIR. I mean, that's well affordable for most situations. So the likes of farmers checking on crops, the likes of fire services and people like that who are often strapped for money, emergency services, looking for people lost in the woods.
Charities. Look at charities. You look at Quake and things out there, and the disaster relief funds. The things like fire services and police service and stuff, that's great. But whenever we look at disaster relief funds, having drones like this and this type of capability absolutely can be the difference between life and death.
Yeah,
for a lot of people. And at that sort of money, it puts it well within the reach of those agencies.
Correct. And the last story then, slightly different tack again. It's SwiftKey. SwiftKey are the company that make alternative keyboards for Android and for iOS. I don't know if they do one for Windows Phone, but they definitely do ones for Android and iOS. And they have brought out a kind of pictogram type keyboard for people who have disabilities, people who have a hard time communicating. So, and they use predictive algorithms as well, so that if you are, the example they give in the article is, if every Wednesday afternoon you go to a music lesson, then on the Wednesday afternoon, they will put up the particular ones related to music, in their predictive algorithm, they'll be brought to the top. So they tend to learn your schedule, and they tend to do the series of images which are most pertinent to where you would be at any particular point in time. So it's a way for people who have communications difficulties to communicate more easily. And they have a couple of quotes there from people who were involved in the development, who are from speech and language therapies, and they all speak quite highly of it. And SwiftKey were involved in Stephen Hawking's they
rebuilt his communications array with another company. I think it was
ClickSpeak.
ClickSpeak. That's what it was. Yeah. But yeah, it was they did some phenomenal work there.
Yeah. So these are people who have form in this space. So for people who have verbal or language difficulties, something like this would be hugely beneficial, and it's great to see that coming out. So,
completely.
All right, that's our last story for this week. Thanks everyone for your interest and your patience, and we will be back next week. I know I said that 2 weeks ago, and we weren't back next week because that was my fault. Because I was on a plane, but coming back from thing. But anyway, we will be back next week. I don't have any more trips lined up until January, so we will be back next week and we'll have more stories.
Oh, I may not be on with you next week. I'll be coming back from a training course, so I shall. So but I'll know more later on in the week.
Let me know, and we'll line someone up if you can't make it. Not to worry.
Perfect.
All right, thanks everyone, and have a great weekend, and we should see you all next week.
No worries. Cheers.